The massive screen at Earth Defense Force headquarters lit up with an unfamiliar signal pattern. Jack Thompson stood at his command post, his heart racing as he watched the unknown spacecraft emerge from behind the moon. After 20 years of service, he had trained for this moment countless times, but nothing could truly prepare anyone for humanity's first contact with alien life. "Sir, the vessel is approximately 3 kilometers in length," reported Mike from his monitoring station. "It's unlike anything we've ever seen. The outer hull appears to be crystalline." Jack nodded, his eyes fixed on the strange ship that gleamed like a massive diamond in the darkness of space. Its surface caught the sunlight and scattered it in rainbow patterns that would have been beautiful if they weren't so terrifying. "Send the greeting package on all frequencies," Jack ordered, following the first contact protocols they had developed decades ago. The package contained basic mathematical sequences, visual representations of human peaceful intentions, and simple language primers. The response came faster than anyone expected. The alien ship's surface rippled, and suddenly dozens of smaller vessels emerged from what appeared to be liquid crystal hangars. They moved with impossible grace, their crystalline structures catching and reflecting sunlight like schools of exotic fish. "Multiple ships detected, sir. They're heading toward the Lunar Defense Station." Jack's stomach tightened. This wasn't how first contact was supposed to go. "Open a direct channel. Let's try to talk to them." The communications officer worked frantically at his console. "Channel open, sir." Taking a deep breath, Jack spoke clearly and calmly. "This is Commander Jack Thompson of the Earth Defense Force. We welcome peaceful contact and wish to establish diplomatic relations." The response came in perfect English, which was the first red flag. "We are the Dominion. Your species has been observed and found wanting. Your attempt at space travel is crude. Your technology is primitive. Your existence as a spacefaring race is an offense to the natural order." The statement hung in the air for a moment before all hell broke loose. The smaller crystal ships accelerated toward the lunar base, their surfaces morphing to reveal what could only be weapon ports. "All stations, battle stations. This is not a drill." Jack's voice boomed through the facility. "Get me the President on the line and launch our defense fleet." Earth's ships, small and metallic against the crystalline beauty of the alien vessels, rushed to meet the threat. They looked like simple toys compared to the advanced technology they faced, but they were humanity's best hope. The first shots fired by the Dominion weren't energy beams or projectiles. They were waves of crystalline growth that spread across the surface of Earth's ships like frost on a window. Where the crystal touched, systems failed and metal crumbled. "They're not just destroying our ships," the science officer reported, horror in his voice. "They're converting our materials into their crystalline structure." Jack watched as the first wave of Earth's defense fleet was transformed into drifting crystal sculptures. The Dominion ships moved with surgical precision, their attacks spreading the alien mineral growth with terrifying efficiency. But humanity wasn't completely defenseless. A lucky shot from one of Earth's railguns shattered a smaller Dominion vessel, sending crystalline debris spinning through space. In the midst of the destruction, Jack noticed something odd about how the fragments broke apart. "Record everything," he ordered. "Every scan, every frequency, every pattern of breaking." Something about their technology has to have a weakness. The battle for the lunar base lasted less than an hour. When it was over, humanity had lost 30 ships and their primary lunar defense station. The Dominion withdrew to the dark side of the moon, leaving behind a chilling message: "You have one Earth rotation to surrender your world. Resist, and we will shatter your civilization like the primitive crystal it is." As Jack stared at the debris field that had once been humanity's first line of defense, he noticed something strange. The fragments of the destroyed Dominion ship were vibrating in response to the standard radio frequencies they were using. He immediately ordered all sensor data to be sent to Earth's research teams. The Dominion had meant to intimidate humanity by displaying their superior technology. Instead, they had given Earth scientists their first clue about how to fight back. They just didn't know it yet. Dr. Emma Brooks hadn't slept in 36 hours. The research lab beneath Denver's mountains was buzzing with activity as scientists from around the world studied the crystal fragments from the destroyed Dominion ship. Time was running out. They had less than 5 hours before the aliens' deadline. "Play that frequency pattern again," she told her assistant, rubbing her tired eyes. The lab's speakers hummed as they replayed the recording of radio signals from the battle. On the table before her, a small piece of alien crystal vibrated slightly. "Wait." Emma jumped up from her chair. "Did anyone else see that?" "Run it again, but increase the volume by 50%. This time, everyone in the lab saw it. The crystal fragment didn't just vibrate. It produced a faint, high-pitched tone of its own. "Get me Commander Thompson on the line," Emma ordered, her exhaustion forgotten. When Jack's face appeared on the screen, she could barely contain her excitement. "Commander, I think we found something. These crystals, they're not just their building material. They're like living tuning forks." Jack leaned closer to his screen. "Explain it to me in simple terms, Doctor." Emma grabbed a normal tuning fork from her desk. "You know how a tuning fork works, right? Hit it, and it vibrates at a specific frequency. These alien crystals work the same way, but they're much more complex. They don't just respond to one frequency, they respond to entire patterns of sound." "And this helps us how?" Jack asked, glancing nervously at a screen showing the Dominion fleet's position. Emma struck the tuning fork and held it near the alien crystal. The fragment shimmered and produced a harmonic response. Their entire technology is based on these crystalline structures. The right sound pattern could disrupt everything. Their ships, their weapons, maybe even their communications. So we need some kind of sonic weapon. Jack was starting to look interested. "Not exactly." Emma pulled up the analysis of the frequency patterns. "We need something that can produce complex, layered sound patterns. Something that can hit multiple frequencies at once, with precise control." And she stopped, her eyes growing wide. "Doctor, what is it?" Emma started laughing. At first it was just a giggle, then it grew into full-blown laughter that made the other scientists stare at her. "Oh my God, I know how we can beat them. But no one's going to believe it." She quickly pulled up a video on her computer. It was a recording of the Boston Pops Orchestra performing at the 4th of July celebration last year. "Listen to this part, the brass section, when they're all playing together." The rich, complex sounds of tubas, trombones, and trumpets filled the lab. On the table, the alien crystal began to vibrate violently. Tiny cracks appeared on its surface. "Holy shit," Jack whispered, understanding dawning on his face. "Are you saying we can fight the most advanced alien race we've ever seen with musical instruments?" Emma nodded excitedly. "Not just any instruments. Brass instruments specifically. They can produce exactly the kind of layered, resonant frequencies we need. And the best part, the aliens would never expect it. They probably don't even recognize these as technology." "The World Security Council is meeting in 20 minutes, Jack said. "Can you put together a presentation that won't make them think we've all lost our minds?" Emma looked at the cracked crystal fragment. "I can do better than that. I can show them." She turned to her team. "Get me a tuba from the nearest high school, and make sure someone here knows how to play it." As her team scrambled to follow her orders, Emma started preparing her presentation. She knew she was about to propose what might be the craziest military strategy in human history. But as she looked at the data scrolling across her screen, the perfect match between brass instrument frequencies and the alien crystal's resonance patterns, she couldn't help but smile. Sometimes the best weapons weren't weapons at all. And maybe that was humanity's greatest strength. The ability to see possibilities where others saw only musical instruments. The Dominion was about to learn that the hard way. Captain Tom Reed stared at the group assembled in the aircraft hangar. Instead of soldiers with guns, he saw musicians with instruments. Where there should have been tanks, there were tubas. In place of missile launchers stood trombones. If someone had told him a week ago that he'd be training an orchestra for combat, he would have laughed in their face. "You want to run this by me one more time, Dr. Brooks?" he asked, watching as technicians attached strange devices to a row of brass instruments. Emma walked over, carrying what looked like a modified tuba. "These amplifiers will boost the sound waves to levels that can affect the alien ships. Each instrument has been tuned to hit specific frequencies that will resonate with their crystal technology." Tom picked up a trombone and examined the small black box attached to its bell. "And you're sure this will work?" "Watch this." Emma nodded to a musician who raised his trumpet. Behind them, inside a sealed chamber, sat a piece of the alien crystal they'd been using for tests. The trumpet player took a deep breath and played a single, clear note. The crystal vibrated, then cracked. When the trumpet player switched to a different note, the crack spread. By the time he finished playing a short scale, the crystal had shattered completely. "That was with just one instrument," Emma said, grinning. "Imagine what a full orchestra can do." Tom whistled softly. "All right, I'm convinced. But how do we get close enough to use these? The Dominion ships will blast us out of the sky before we can play a single note." "That's where these come in." Emma led him to a row of what looked like spacesuits, but with special modifications. "We've adapted them to channel the sound waves directly through space. The aliens use crystalline technology for everything. Their ships, their weapons, even their communication systems. One good concert could bring down their entire fleet." The hangar doors opened, and more musicians began filing in. They looked nervous but determined. Many had never expected to serve in the military, let alone be humanity's last line of defense. "Listen up," Tom called out, addressing the assembled musicians. "I know this isn't what any of you trained for. You studied music to create art, to entertain, to bring beauty to the world. But today, your music will do something even more important. It's going to save Earth." He walked down the line, looking each person in the eye. "The aliens think they know everything about us. They see our instruments as primitive noisemakers. They've dismissed our music as meaningless sound. That's their mistake." Emma stepped forward with a stack of sheet music. "We've composed a special piece that will maximize damage to their fleet. We're calling it Earth's Symphony of Defense. Each section targets a different part of their ship's systems." As the musicians began studying their parts, Tom noticed something interesting. Despite the pressure, despite the fear, many of them were smiling as they read through the music. "This is actually pretty good," one tuba player commented. "The harmonies are beautiful, even if they are designed to destroy alien ships." "Of course they are," Emma replied. "We're not just fighting a war, we're creating art. The fact that it's also a weapon, that's just proof of human creativity." Over the next several hours, the unusual army practiced their piece. The sound echoed through the hangar, powerful and strange. Technicians monitored readings on their instruments, adjusting the amplifiers for maximum effect. "Time's up," Tom announced, checking his watch. "The Dominion will expect our surrender in 1 hour. Instead, we're going to give them a concert they'll never forget." As the musicians suited up and their instruments were loaded onto transport ships, Tom couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of it all. Here they were, about to fight an advanced alien race with tubas and trombones. It was crazy. It was ridiculous. It was also exactly the kind of thing that made humans special. Who else would think to turn musical instruments into weapons? What other species would face an advanced alien invasion with a brass band? "Ready to make history?" Emma asked, helping to secure the last of the modified instruments. Tom nodded. "Let's show the Dominion why you should never underestimate human creativity." The transport ships rose silently through Earth's atmosphere, carrying their unusual cargo of musicians and modified instruments. Inside the lead ship, Tom watched as the last hints of blue sky faded to the black of space. Behind him, 30 musicians checked their instruments one final time, their space suits modified to allow them to play in the vacuum of space. Dominion ships detected, the pilot announced. They're holding position above the moon, just as expected. Remember, Emma's voice came through their communication systems. The amplifiers will only work at close range. We need to get within 5 kilometers of their ships before we start planning. Tom looked at his tactical display. The plan was simple, even if it seemed insane. 3 transport ships would approach from different directions, each carrying a section of their makeshift orchestra. The aliens would expect them to be carrying traditional weapons. They wouldn't scan for musical instruments because, well, who would? All ships maintain radio silence, Tom ordered. Follow your designated approach vectors. Remember your training. Through the viewport, he could see the crystalline ships of the Dominion fleet glittering in the sunlight. They were beautiful in a terrifying way, like deadly ice sculptures floating in space. Several smaller ships moved in patrol patterns around a massive command vessel. They're scanning us, the pilot reported. Standard energy readings only. They haven't detected anything unusual. Tom smiled. The special shielding Dr. Brooks had designed was working. It hid the unique signatures of their modified instruments, making their ships appear to be ordinary transport vessels, the kind of ships that might be carrying the surrender delegation. 2 minutes to optimal range, the pilot announced. Tom turned to face the musicians. They didn't look like soldiers, even in their spacesuits. A high school band teacher held her trumpet ready. Next to her, an old man who'd played tuba in a jazz band for 40 years adjusted his mouthpiece. A college student gripped her trombone, her hand steady despite the fear visible in her eyes. Remember, Tom said, this isn't just about hitting the right notes. This is about showing them what humans can do, about turning our art into their nightmare. The ships continued their approach. On the tactical display, Tom watched as the other 2 transports moved into position. The Dominion ships made no move to stop them. Why would they? These were obviously surrender vessels, coming to accept their fate. 1 kilometer to optimal range, the pilot called out. Suddenly, alarms blared. They're powering up weapons, the pilot shouted. They must have figured out something's wrong. Now, Tom ordered. All ships begin playing. Full power to the amplifiers. The musicians raised their instruments. In the vacuum of space, no sound traveled between the ships. But through their connected systems, Tom heard the music begin. The piece they'd practiced, Earth's Symphony of Defense, started with a low, powerful chord from the tubas. Through the viewport, Tom saw the nearest Dominion ship shudder. Its crystalline surface vibrated visibly as the sound waves hit it. The trumpets joined in, their high notes precisely targeted at the frequencies Dr. Brooks had identified as most destructive. It's working. Emma's voice was excited. Their crystal structures are beginning to destabilize. The Dominion ships tried to return fire, but their weapon ports were already cracking, the crystal components vibrating apart under the assault of the music. The trombones added their voices to the symphony, and the first small enemy ship shattered completely, breaking into thousands of glittering pieces. Keep playing, Tom encouraged as the Dominion fleet began to realize what was happening. Their ships tried to retreat, but they'd let the human vessels get too close. The music was hitting them from 3 directions, each note carefully chosen to tear their crystal technology apart. In the midst of the battle, Tom noticed something strange. The musicians weren't just playing the destructive frequencies, they were really performing. The piece was beautiful in its own way. Humanity's response to alien invasion wasn't just effective, it was artistic. Status report. He called out as another Dominion ship began to crack. 5 enemy ships destroyed. The tactical officer reported. No human casualties. Sir, I think we're winning. Tom watched as the Symphony of Defense continued to tear apart the alien fleet. No, he corrected. We're not just winning. We're giving them a concert they'll never forget. News of humanity's musical victory spread quickly across Earth. In the command center, Jack Thompson watched dozens of video feeds showing celebrations in cities worldwide. But his attention kept returning to the main screen, where the Dominion's massive command ship was retreating behind the moon, trailing crystalline fragments like broken glass. "Play that last transmission again," he ordered. The alien commander's message filled the room. This is impossible. You fight with noise. With primitive sound-making devices, this cannot be." Emma walked up beside him, dark circles under her eyes, but a smile on her face. They still don't understand what hit them. 9 ships destroyed, and they think it was some kind of sonic weapon. "Wasn't it?" Jack asked, raising an eyebrow. "No." Emma shook her head. "It was music. There's a difference. A sonic weapon is just noise. What we used was carefully composed harmony. That's why it worked so well. The complexity of the music matched the complexity of their crystal technology." The celebration was interrupted by flashing red alerts. New signals were appearing on the long-range scanners. "Multiple contacts," the sensor operator called out. "Bigger than anything we've seen before. They're coming from the direction of Mars." The main screen filled with images of massive Dominion ships, each one at least twice the size of the vessels they'd faced before. Their crystalline surfaces had been modified, covered with what looked like metallic shields. "They're adapting," Emma said, rushing to her console. "They're trying to protect their crystal systems from our frequencies." The largest ship broadcast a message that echoed through every speaker in the command center. "Your primitive music tricks will not work again. We have reinforced our vessels. Prepare for extinction." But Emma was smiling. "They still don't get it, do they?" She turned to Jack. "Remember how an opera singer can shatter a wine glass? It's not just about volume. It's about finding the perfect resonant frequency. These shields they've added, they're like putting a metal lid on a glass. The lid might block some frequencies, but if you find the right note, the whole thing will vibrate even more." Jack finished, beginning to understand. Emma nodded excitedly. "Get me Captain Reed. We need to modify our symphony." In the rehearsal hangar, Tom watched as musicians quickly learned new parts. The piece was changing, becoming more complex. Where before they had played straight at the enemy ships, now they would use the aliens' own shields to amplify their music. "Think of it like playing in a concert hall," Emma explained to the musicians. "The hall's structure doesn't block the music. It enhances it. Their shields will do the same thing, if we play the right notes." A young trumpet player raised her hand. "The new part you gave us. This is Flight of the Bumblebee, isn't it?" Emma grinned. "Modified a bit, but yes. We found that its rapid note patterns are particularly good at shattering their secondary crystal matrices. Plus, it's really annoying. Let's see how they like listening to that on repeat." Within hours, the human fleet was ready for another battle. This time, they had twice as many musicians, their instruments further modified to take advantage of the Dominion's defensive changes. As the transport ships launched again, Tom looked at his unusual army. They weren't just musicians anymore. They were warriors who fought with melody instead of missiles. Some had even decorated their spacesuits with musical notes and treble clefs. "Enemy ships approaching," the pilot announced. "They're charging weapons." "Let them come," Tom said. He raised his hand like a conductor. "Remember, everyone, this isn't just about destroying their ships. This is about showing them why humans are different, why we'll always find a way to survive." The massive Dominion fleet drew closer, their new shields gleaming. "Target their flagship," Tom ordered. "Let's start with something they might recognize, something that will show them exactly what they're dealing with." He smiled as the musicians raised their instruments. "Let's give them Wagner's Ride of the Valkyries." Full volume. The battle was about to begin again. But this time, humanity was ready. They had turned their greatest art into their greatest weapon, and they were about to give the performance of their lives. Space around Earth had become a concert hall unlike any in human history. Hundreds of musicians in modified spacesuits floated in formation, their instruments gleaming in the sunlight. The Dominion's massive fleet faced them, their crystal ships now covered in protective shields that sparkled like mirrors. All musicians, check your oxygen levels and amplifier settings. Tom's voice came through the communication system. This is going to be a long performance. In the command center, Emma and Jack watched the tactical display as more Dominion ships emerged from behind Mars. The alien fleet was enormous, but Emma noticed something interesting about their new defensive formations. "Look at how they're arranged," she said, pointing to the screen. "They've positioned their ships in a spiral pattern. They think they're being clever, trying to deflect our sound waves." Jack frowned. "Isn't that going to be a problem?" Emma laughed. "They just turned their fleet into a giant acoustic horn. They've basically built us an amplifier." She quickly sent new instructions to the musicians. The human fleet began to spread out, taking positions that would use the Dominion's own formation against them. "Begin with Section 1, Tom commanded. "Tubas and trombones. Start with the bass harmony." The low, powerful notes struck the nearest Dominion ships. At first, nothing seemed to happen. The aliens' new shields held firm, just as they planned. "Full orchestra, join in. Play Movement 1." The music swelled as hundreds of instruments joined together. The modified Ride of the Valkyries echoed through their connected systems. The Dominion ship's shields began to vibrate, but still didn't break. Then something unexpected happened. The vibrating shields started reflecting the sound waves, bouncing them between ships, exactly as Emma had predicted. The spiral formation of the alien fleet created a cascade effect, each ship amplifying the music and sending it to the next. "Their own formation is trapping our sound waves," Emma reported excitedly. "The music is getting stronger with each reflection." The first crack appeared in a shield near the center of the Dominion fleet, then another, and another. The aliens tried to break formation, but they were too slow. Their carefully planned defensive pattern had become a trap. "They're sending their smaller ships to attack," Jack warned. "Fighters incoming. Switch to Movement 2, Tom ordered. The orchestra smoothly transitioned to their modified version of Flight of the Bumblebee. The rapid, complex notes were specifically designed to target the smaller ship's crystal cores. The effect was immediate. The Dominion fighters began to break apart, their shields useless against the quick, penetrating notes. Crystal fragments sparkled in the sunlight like falling stars. "Main fleet is charging weapons," called the tactical officer. "Now," Emma ordered, "play the new piece." The entire orchestra began performing a piece that had never been heard before, a combination of classical themes and modern compositions, specifically written to exploit every weakness they'd discovered in the Dominion's technology. The music built upon itself, growing stronger with each measure, using the aliens' own ships as a massive resonance chamber. The Dominion fleet tried to retreat, but their engines were already failing as the crystal components shattered. Their shields, designed to reflect the sound waves away, instead caught them in an endless loop that grew stronger with each reflection. "Their flagship is breaking up," someone shouted. Through the viewport, they watched as the massive command ship shields cracked like breaking ice. The crystalline hull beneath began to splinter, creating a beautiful but deadly light show. In that moment, Tom realized something amazing. The musicians weren't just fighting. They were truly performing. Despite the battle raging around them, every note was perfect, every harmony precise. They had turned space warfare into an art form. "Final movement," he commanded. "Let's finish this concert." The music reached its crescendo, hundreds of instruments playing in perfect harmony. The combined sound waves, amplified by the Dominion's own fleet formation, created a symphony of destruction that would be remembered in human history forever. As the last of the large Dominion ships broke apart, their crystalline fragments creating a glittering field of debris, Tom couldn't help but smile. The aliens had come expecting to find primitive savages. Instead, they'd found artists who had turned their greatest creation, music itself, into the ultimate weapon. 1 month after the Great Battle, Earth prepared for its largest musical performance ever. The Dominion's remaining fleet had gathered at the edge of the solar system, preparing for one final massive attack. But this time, humanity was ready with a plan that even Dr. Emma Brooks admitted was a little crazy. "Let me get this straight," Jack said, looking at the blueprints spread across the command center table. "You want to turn the entire planet into a speaker?" Emma nodded excitedly. "We've installed amplifiers at strategic points around the globe. When everyone plays together, Earth itself will project the music into space. We're calling it the Concert of Victory." "Everyone?" Jack asked. "Everyone," Tom confirmed. "Every orchestra, every band, every music student from middle school to professional. Over 10 million musicians, all playing the same piece at the exact same time." The plan was ambitious. Screens had been set up in every city, letting musicians follow a single conductor who would lead the global performance. In orbit, specially designed satellites would capture and focus the sound waves toward the approaching Dominion fleet. As the day arrived, the alien ships appeared exactly as predicted. Their fleet was massive, nearly 1,000 ships strong. They had clearly gathered every remaining vessel in their arsenal for this final attack. "They've modified their shields again," Emma noted, studying the sensor readings. "Multiple layers of crystal and metal. They think they're ready for our music this time." "Are we sure this will work?" Jack asked, watching as millions of musicians around the world took their positions. Emma smiled. "They're still thinking like warriors. We're thinking like artists. This piece isn't just designed to destroy their ships. It's designed to show them who we are." The countdown began. On screens across the planet, the conductor raised his hands. Millions of musicians readied their instruments. In space, the Dominion fleet moved closer, their weapons charging. 10 seconds to global performance, the computer announced. Tom, now in orbit with a smaller defense fleet, watched the alien ships approach. "Whatever happens, it's been an honor making music with all of you." 5 seconds. Around the world, people held their breath. Every brass instrument on Earth was about to play at once. "Begin." The piece started softly, millions of tubas and trombones playing a gentle, almost peaceful melody. The Dominion fleet hesitated, probably confused by the lack of attack. Then the trumpets joined in. The music built slowly, layer by layer. Instruments that had never been played together created new harmonies. The sound rose from Earth like a wave, captured and focused by the orbital satellites. The first Dominion ship broke apart almost gently, its crystals separating along perfect musical frequencies. Others followed, their multi-layered shields proving useless against the sheer complexity of Earth's united symphony. "It's working," Emma shouted. "The harmonics are perfect." The music swelled toward its climax. Every musician on Earth, from the youngest student to the most experienced professional, played together in perfect harmony. The sound waves reached the heart of the Dominion fleet, and something extraordinary happened. The alien ships didn't just break apart. They shattered in rhythm with the music. Their crystalline fragments caught the sunlight and scattered it in patterns that matched the melody. It was as if they had become part of the performance, their destruction turning into the most spectacular light show humanity had ever seen. In the command center, Jack noticed something on his screens. "We're picking up a transmission from the Dominion flagship." The alien commander's voice sounded different this time, not angry or threatening, but filled with something that might have been awe. "We have encountered many species, fought many battles. But never have we seen war and art become one. Never have we witnessed a species turn music itself into a force that could reshape space. We acknowledge your victory, humans. Your song will be remembered across the galaxy." As the last notes faded and the remaining Dominion ships retreated, Emma looked at the data streaming across her screen. "They're leaving the solar system," she said quietly. "All of them. We did it." "No," Tom's voice came through the communication system. "We didn't just do it. We performed it. Around the world, cheers erupted as people realized what had happened. Humanity had faced an advanced alien invasion, and won not through superior technology or military might, but through the power of art. They had turned music, one of their oldest and most beautiful creations, into something that had saved their entire species. The Dominion had come expecting to find primitives with simple weapons. Instead, they had found artists who could turn harmony into heroism and melody into might. They had learned what humans had known for thousands of years, that sometimes the most powerful force in the universe isn't a weapon at all.